So we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about: developing artists and engagement and income. So I guess we're going to talk about income streams and I guess how to further engage with audiences which may produce income streams. My name's Adrian Cooke. My main job is I work for the Arts Council in the music team there. So I fund lots of events like this one and bands and artists that put projects together and apply for money. I also, as well as that, run a festival, showcase festival called Sound and Vision, which used to run in Norwich and now happens in Cambridge. And I also do a bit of work with Independent Venue Week. But I've got a fantastic panel here, so I think if I get them to introduce themselves, maybe starting here with you, Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee Warren. I'm the events director for a company called Bauer Media, but you'll probably know the brands that I work as Kiss, Kisstree, Magic, Kerrang, got to try and remember them all. About 10 different brands basically, and I'm in effect their in-house promoter, so I'm all about live and selling tickets and generating revenue that way.
My name is Emerald Wilcox. I'm at PRS and my title is Relationship Manager for Black Music. It's a newly created role that started about 6 months ago. So yeah, that's me.
Hello, I'm Jasmine. I am a music journalist and I'm also a senior promotions manager at Kartel Music Group, where we do PR and radio campaigns for bands internally and externally.
Cool, excellent. So where should we start? Anyone got an idea in terms of, we can take this in any order you like, really. I'm wondering if we should start with the basics of where artists in their career will actually first start earning any money at all, and how that might happen. I realise there's obviously a PRS angle to this in terms of songwriting, but in fact, do you want to go first, actually, talking about what those royalties are and how they're earned for a songwriter?
Yes, I think the first thing is actually register at the PRS. Yeah. That's the first part. So the creation process, once you actually create a song, there's a value attached to it, whether it's actually seen as being like the traditional model of someone buying it. There's streaming, there's radio play, there's performing in bars and like anywhere that you go where your music is being played, there's a licensing element to it. And what we do at PRS is that we collect those royalties and we pay them to the license holders. So the first part where you actually see your money will probably be PRS. Yeah. Whereas within now, many artists today are looking at just putting out videos on YouTube to then get signed from a label and forget the PRS element or signing up to any other, competitors, whatever. But it's like, you need to really register, because if you're not registered, we can't collect and people think that you can backdate, but you can't unless you've actually registered and signed up.
Yeah. So if you're a songwriter, whether it's part of a band or on your own, like at what stage do you think you should be registering for PRS?
I think, to be honest, get into the habit of doing it at the very start, because if you believe in yourself and you believe in your talent and you believe it's going to go far, this is the best investment you can do. Like actually registering for PRS, you're probably going to spend money on a studio, mixing, mastering, a video. To get the money on the back end, you need to be signed up. So I just think like, as soon as you actually start getting into the process of actually going to the studios, start signing up, because also you have to start looking at splits, which is where you may need management and things of that nature, but to actually understand how everything's divided, and also there's MCPS, so that is part of PRS to an extent, but you need to really just get that in at the beginning when you actually are recording.
And how do you do it? Like, how do you become a PRS member?
We have the website. The process is pretty simple, I hope. And yeah, you sign up. I think you have to just have your bank details, your passport. It's a one-off fee. It's literally a one-off fee for life. So it's not like you pay it and you have to continually pay it. It's one and it's done. And
how much is that at the moment?
I think it's £100 currently.
Yeah. Does Stuart know? Yeah.
If I get anything wrong, I'll be looking at Stuart. But
as you say, it sounds a lot, I suppose, but it's not that much money, is it? As you say, it's a one-time fee, and as you say, you can be collecting that, whether it's radio play, playing gigs, even if they're doing small gigs, right? You've got the small pub and club scheme where you can be, getting paid for gigs where you're playing your own music.
And to your point of that, you have to actually register where you're playing out, which is important. Yeah. So like letting people know, and even some of the big artists, even if they're doing stuff like Wireless Festival, they forget the element of actually registering sometimes their songs. But PRS, we do go around and we actually collect people's like set lists. But when you're doing it yourself independently, just get into the habit of going through the website, wherever you're performing, whatever the amount is, just get used to the habit of actually registering anything that you do, because it is worth something, and we're here to collect it on your behalf.
Cool, thanks. Jazz, can I call you Jazz?
Yes, please.
Where, in terms of either what you're doing now or what you're doing before, where are you seeing artists sort of, where are they getting their money at their sort of formative stage of their careers, as they just kind of start, I guess, getting records together and starting to put them out?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, predominantly I'm working sort of rock and punk bands. That's where my area of expertise is. And I find, through my own personal experience, it's through live as well, through selling those merch things at your gigs, having records. Like, we were actually with a band, Isabel and I were with a band a little while. That's my friend Isabel over there, by the way, who probably hates me pointing her out. We were with a band who were playing a show quite recently, and they came down and they didn't set up their merch stall. And it was the most annoying thing, and we only found out after they played their set, and like people were coming up to us just like asking like, where can we get a t-shirt, where can we get vinyl, where can we get, and we were like, we've got all of it and it's in the van. And if it was out, the band could have made an absolute killing that show, and they didn't. So for me personally, I would say live is another really big aspect of it, and it's something you definitely need to take into consideration. And you can do, like, I know that tapes are sort of making a bit of a comeback as well. Like, I've got loads of tapes at home, don't have a tape player. But they're really cheap to make, and people like buying them as souvenirs. So that is like a really, I would say, a cost-effective way of getting some money coming in as well. Like, obviously there's streaming and stuff, but for me, like, live is where I see most of the income coming in with the bands that I personally
In terms of the actual fees?
Well, not with fees, but I think more with the merch that they're selling.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
The fees are something that I don't deal with because I don't like talking about money.
But the live is driving the merch sales.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, do you think where is merch sales at in terms of? Do you think it's at a high in terms of the? Because it seems to me there's in many gigs there's more breadth of like stuff on offer that bands are bringing, which seems a good thing to do, right? Is that still kind of increasing, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all dependent on the style of music. So I think with bands that I'm working with, when you get a lot of that sort of Six Music dad clientele turning up to the gigs.
That's
like,
me, that is.
Yeah.
So that's me too.
Yeah. No, they are more likely to be buying merch. And I think post-COVID as well, people are really wanting to support like the independent venues and the independent bands, and they're wanting to buy the T-shirts. And I think now is a really good time to utilise that. But then obviously the cost of living is going up, so I think now it's a high, but whether that's going to remain over Christmas because of the Tories, then I don't know.
Yeah, back to Tories.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that? That just reminded. Sorry.
So that's a different panel.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that after as an encore.
We'll do it at the pub.
Yeah, do it at the pub. That just reminded me of something that there's been a little bit of talk recently. I've noticed that venues are starting to want a slice of the merch pie, if you like. Have you experienced that at all, any of you, in terms of like venues just demanding a percentage of the merch sales, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, certainly the stuff that I do. I mean, you're right. Merch it's kind of genre specific. So the shows that I do with Planet Rock, for instance, huge merch is part of the revenue. Certain brands not so much. I mean, like if I do an event with Magic FM, program is probably as far as we'll go because the spend isn't there. But we actually have a question mark sometimes with running merch and supporting artists with merch because of the venue cost and the venue cut out of it and the staffing of it, and you also have that issue of how much you produce and all of those kind of things. But I think if you can get it right, then it's a lucrative revenue opportunity. Not so much for the promoter anymore, but I think it is for the acts.
Okay. I haven't got any set questions for this. We're literally kind of jamming it. I'm just wondering, I'm asking you, do you think we should open up to see if there's anything that we could cover usefully in the time rather than just... Has anyone got anything kind of loosely within the sort of realms of engagement and generating income that we could helpfully answer, or doesn't matter if you haven't, we'll just make it up. Ben's got one. Let's have an open discussion.
We can't hear you.
Oh, let's do a rap battle.
I suppose, with the festival that we're all here at, Arts Council and public funding has been, pivotal.
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah. Interesting segue. But it always seems really esoteric and very hard to access, or to begin that journey to work out how you can fund a project, what the application process is, and who you can talk to about that. So obviously for me, we've had that conversation, and it started me on the road of being able to fund this project long term. So for someone that can't necessarily tap into a relationship manager or someone that can give them advice, but is sat here and is really interested in starting their own festival or trying to fund a creative project, how can they best do that, and how can they be most impactful with their application?
So I think one of the reasons that people like me work at the Arts Council these days, which perhaps wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, is because the Arts Council didn't see the need, or maybe there was no need to necessarily intervene in what they would term the music industry, because generally speaking, certainly 20 years ago, it kind of washed its face, and there was development money around for new artists and all those things. Major labels certainly were making enough money to kind of take a chance on artists. That model has obviously changed a lot over the years, and the Arts Council has got more involved in what they will call contemporary popular music, which Arts Council language for rock and roll. So there are more opportunities, and of course it isn't just Arts Council. Arts Council is the single biggest funder of music in the country, but there are other sources of funding, PRS Foundation obviously being one of them, which is worth looking at as well, particularly for artists. But I mean, in terms of how you would do it, whether you're an artist starting out or you want to run an event, or maybe you're a venue that wants to put on a new program of gigs, there's not loads of staff. I mean, obviously I am your person for the East of England. If you can possibly find me things like this, that's really useful, and I can tell you how to do it. But ultimately, it's all on our website. It's all put our biggest fund that's available to anyone is called National Lottery Project Grants, which is what Wildpaths is funded through. There's no deadlines for that. You can apply any time. You can keep applying if you're unsuccessful the first time. You can apply up to £30,000 and get an answer within 6 weeks. It's a pretty swift process. There's another tranche above that. You can apply for between 30 and 100 grand for bigger projects as well, like this one. And generally speaking, it's there for everyone. It's there for everyone to have a dip at if they've got an idea or a project that they want some funding for, including individual artists. We have funded artists at quite early stages in their career. We've funded artists in Norwich like Sink Your Teeth and who else? Birds of Hell, a few bands, and it's generally been for either. I mean, effectively, the whole reason Arts Council exists is to fund activity that wouldn't have happened because the market won't support it, and for early artists, that happens quite a lot. So yeah, effectively, either speak to one of us or someone from one of those funding bodies. The other thing you can do, I mean, the Arts Council's got what we call national portfolio organisations. So they're organisations that are funded on a sort of regular basis, either on a 3 or 4 year kind of agreements. And Norwich Arts Centre are one of them here, and they're usually quite good to, if you can find them, sort of ask them about stuff, because they're pretty engaged in the whole Arts Council process. Does that answer your question, Ben?
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
So what's the application process like? Like, is it quite a daunting thing? Do people need lots of experience? Or what are you looking for? What's your big no-nos? What's your big yes?
With Arts Council, it has changed in the last year, and I'll be honest, I don't like the new form at all. But it's not because it's not made it easier. It's made it. You could say it's made it more complicated. But effectively, if you're asking for money from anywhere, you have to fill in some sort of form, and all it is advice to, it's just a way of telling us who you are and what you're doing and why it might be good. Generally speaking, as I say, the Arts Council's there to fund things that wouldn't have happened through the market supporting it, because the market won't. Particularly interested in sort of diverse groups who don't normally get, because it's public money, whether it's national lottery money or the treasury money. Is that a dentist? What is that noise? My teeth are hurting. I mean, the first thing I would say is don't try and think you need to speak some sort of weird Arts Council language, because I don't know what that is. I don't speak it, whatever it is. And also, if you do get knocked back, just keep going. You'll always get like a reply if it was unsuccessful, saying why and what you might want to look at for next time. So it's about starting a process with us, really. So hopefully it isn't daunting, and it's, you know, you're not told to go away and never come back. It's like, okay, it didn't happen this time, but maybe look at this for next time. But, you know, it's art, man. So, and it's, you know, what we don't want to do is be prescriptive over what it is you want to do. You know, it's about people being able to go, I've got a fucking great idea. If I can make this happen, then this would be a really cool thing, you know. The only thing you do have to do, because it's national lottery, is it's got to have some sort of public benefit or public engagement, which normally means there's an audience, basically. If it's a music thing, it's just like, who are the audience and like who you're going to reach.
That's really cool that you guys send like the feedback and as to why you were unsuccessful. Because something like from like in my thing with where I'm promoting and doing like radio plugging and like pitching for like digital PR and stuff, like I find the most frustrating and tedious part of my job is when, because I've got all these good relationships with these radio's presenters and producers, but sometimes you just send these emails and you don't get anything back, and you're like, oh, like, were we close to getting support? Did you like the music? Did you not? So that's why it's really important, I find, to have those like radio like plugging meetings as well, because then you can actually get the feedback. Because I feel, again, it's almost like when you're applying for jobs as well, you know, when you're just like sending out like application after application, you get nothing back and you're like, am I close? Am I really off the mark here? So I think it's really cool that you guys do send that feedback, because then it's something that you can work on again, and it's just nice to know where you stand with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of understand why, you know, a radio plugger, you know, or a radio station wouldn't necessarily get back to, you know.
But I send such nice emails.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, ultimately it's time, isn't it? And it's, I mean, I suppose that's pretty much the sharp end, the business end. Where of course what we're trying to do is engage as many people as possible. Even if, you know, the best thing for me is that I get, you know, next week, for whatever reason, twice as many music applications, because I know that it's working, and I know we're going to fund some really great stuff. So you want everyone engaged. And then even if they do get knocked back, then the job is to say, well, it doesn't mean your work is rubbish. It just means not this time for whatever reason. And, you know, I mean, our success rate at the moment for those, we do these every week, the ones that are like between £1,000 and £30,000 every week, between my office in Cambridge and our one in Brighton, so just in the east and southeast. We have a panel where we look at those, and we'll probably fund on a really good week 50% if we've got the budget, but not less than 30%. So it's reasonable, but of course there's 50 to 80, you know, 70% that isn't getting funded just because there's no, you know, we couldn't even if we wanted to. So, you know, you want to encourage people to sort of come back and have another go. Does that answer your question?
No, yeah, it does.
No.
Yeah, I think it.
Has anyone else got anything that we can helpfully discuss before I make one up off my brain box?
I've got a question. Is there any artists in this room? Only Ben.
Yeah, he says he is.
So, sorry, the lady in the... What music do you make?
This is brilliant. I love you. This is amazing.
Multitasking.
So I'm in a band and just a part of a band. Obviously, I don't do a lot of writing yet because I'm quite new to that side of things. I was in management before.
You were managing artists before?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Same artist.
Okay.
And then they were like, "Do you want to join us on stage?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." That's kind of how that happened. But yeah, it's kind of like post-rock, art rock kind of stuff, a bit Radiohead. It's a niche thing, and I think that's something that we find really difficult being in a local area, is that because it's niche and quite out there, and our USP is the fact that we're a dysfunctional family, and I think people find it hard to connect with us sometimes. So making money isn't really a thing that we manage to do, because we all have full-time jobs as well, so you can't dedicate the time and resources to doing it, but we just enjoy what we do.
But you have your own audience, right? I mean, from my side, from a promoter side, if anyone comes with audience, you know, you can grow that. That's a way to develop.
Totally. I think the fact is that we're a little bit older as well, so having to dedicate that time and effort on it from 5 different people who were dealing with life stuff, dealing with family, dealing with jobs. It was a really difficult thing to do. But that doesn't stop us enjoying playing Norwich and London and stuff. So, yeah, that's what we do. Yeah.
You signed up to PRS?
Yeah, of
Good,
course.
good.
Yeah.
So are you releasing stuff as well? Is there stuff?
Yeah, we're
Spotify?
on an indie label. It's based in Norwich, who was Arts Council funded.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Off with their records.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they worked with Shane Olinsky.
Yeah. Shane.
Yeah, everyone knows Shane. So he's our bassist. Ryan is our bassist,
Right.
and so he's joined us and put us on the label, and so we kind of released through that. So again, it's still very much like a kind of, we'll kind of slap that there and put that there. So it's not really like this is a serious thing. We want to make money out of this, and we want to like make it our careers necessarily. So, but
See,
it would be nice.
That's interesting because I'm not sure that matters really, and I mean I've seen that a lot in Norwich anyway because it's a cool place to create some art, I think, Norwich anyway, and so it's not all about making money, and it shouldn't be anyway. But I suppose, are you thinking, you're not about to quit your jobs and go on the road for rock and roll, but I guess you must be thinking, how can we grow what we have got in terms of bigger audience, whether it's here or somewhere else? So what kind of things do you do to?
We are currently looking into sort of playing elsewhere other than Norwich and London because we have a base in both of those cities. So actually doing maybe not necessarily a tour as such, but somewhat of a tour, visiting different cities and playing with local artists there and working with promoters. And I found that to be quite difficult to get in touch with people and convince them to let us come play.
Because they don't know you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? So with your, sorry to interrupt, that was really rude of me, but I'm going to do it anyway.
That's what you're here for.
So you said you're with the label, like, do they do like your PR and stuff? Is that internal? Are they outsourcing, or is there just zilch coming in that side of things?
It's literally for distribution more than anything.
Okay.
It's just Ryan on his own, and it's quite difficult for us to do that. He does a little bit of the kind of the press side of things in terms of merchandise, but that's about it really.
Okay,
the rest is
just what you were saying about the whole sort of like dysfunctional family thing, I think that sounds really interesting. And because obviously like, I'm also a journalist as well, and I think the most important thing is when you're either starting out as a band or you've only recently started or whatever, is really honing down on that narrative and getting that immediately, because I think a lot of bands start and they just start churning out some stuff, and then they go, oh, now we actually want to be the voice of this, or this is our hook and this is what we want to do, but it's like, but you've already got some sort of stuff going on. I think it's really important to speak with the label, with the band, either get a PR on board. I know that they can be a bit spenny, but genuinely it is worth it, because they do, like, I think a lot of people just think with PR and radio plugging, it's like, oh, you just sort of get in this magazine or on this radio station, and what does it actually mean? But I think with a PR coming on, like, they really do help you find your voice and find your place in the industry, because as well, like blanket term, just sort of rock music. You can't just be like, oh, I'm a rock band, so I want to get in the rock publications. It's like, yeah, but what kind of rock is it? And you're saying about like art rock, like there are some niche places that you could start going, and when you start building that community around that, that's when you will find your people, and you'll know about where can I book these shows. Like if you're getting in like a zine or something that's maybe just like put in like a small venue or something, then you should be booking shows in that venue, because that's where people are going to be going to get that magazine from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, I spoke really quickly, but I was just like,
Also, the venue, if they're booking themselves, are going to go to those zines to see who's in them. So it makes that process a lot easier. First thing for me, if I get presented with an artist, I want to know, what audience they come with and where they've been and what coverage that they've got. Because ultimately, if I've got to sell some tickets to it, I need to make an estimate of how many tickets I can get out.
yeah. And also finding these journalists that in that sort of niche area. I think this was covered in the last panel as well, about, because like, so for me, like if I love a band, I will pitch them to my editor all the time. Like if they release something, I'm like, please can I just review this, or please can I get this album first, or please can I have a free ticket to their show. And if you find someone, a journalist who loves your band, they're going to do all the hard work for you. Like, if you release something, I mean, they'll just want to have a beer with you. Like, the band Opus Kink that are playing later, like, I keep pitching to my editor, I'm like, I want to interview them, but it's like, I just want to have a beer with them. But, like, so they will do most of the hard work for you. So it's just finding your niche and just really honing in on that, getting that narrative, and just, doing it that way.
And I suppose that's also about building your own kind of network that's your network that's right for you. So journalists that like you, and then in terms of like getting gigs with other cities. I mean, I know it's not easy to do, but one of the ways that it can happen is if you sort of build a community with other bands that are in those territories, and they bit of gig swapping. I know that's a sort of.
Oh no, I love a gig swap.
Yeah,
I love a gig swap.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, I think sometimes, but when that works, that can be really successful.
We have done a little bit of that in the past, and we worked with some promoters in Doncaster and Leeds, for example, and that's the place that we never even thought of, and it just kind of happens organically, quite naturally.
Which is really cool.
It is really cool, and I love it. But you have to maintain that so much, and you have to kind of keep that kind of momentum, I suppose, of like contacting and sort of hanging out and doing these kind of shows and stuff, which is something that we personally find hard to do, but it should be well noted for people who are maybe younger, starting out. That is something that they need to maintain and kind of keep going and keep networking, keep talking to people, and keeping those relationships going.
Cool.
I was just going to add that PRS have a live showcase called PRS Presents. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. It's the live stream stuff. Is the live stream stuff?
It's I think it's a shoot. Do we just do it in London, or we do it across the?
Right. That's what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's a good show, and for me, like a bit of my background prior to me joining PRS, I worked at a label. I was at Polydor Records, so like I'm really passionate about like creatives who actually believe in themselves and actually want to make it a livelihood, and even if it's not that, just to be creative, because once you get into the business side of things, it goes a bit left. Do you know what I mean? So it's like even coming to places like Norwich, I've never been there before. And like coming to grassroots and just seeing how people view music, because in London it's quite London-centric, we're quite spoilt. Like every day there's something, we have access to so many things, like there's so many A&Rs, and when you're speaking about your experience about having signed to a distributor, and they're kind of like in-house, that's, to me, those are the people that need more support, because the actual passion and belief to do something's already there. Whereas London's a bit like, I'm just going to try it because why not? It's not sometimes always as passionate. So for me, I'll just always say to like anyone who's creating is look at, it's cliche, the whys, and try and not think about the monetary value first. Just create as freely as you can whilst you can, because once it sets to a commercialized element of things, like even promoting, it goes like a lot of, I think some artists don't even realize, and you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, when you're being booked for festivals, they base your rates basically on your ticket sales sometimes and what you do. So they'll base how many sales you've done in, let's say, London, and then they'll match that to probably what you should be getting if you're going to be doing a wireless festival. But like I work predominantly in the urban industry, and a lot of these artists don't think about that. They think about doing PAs, getting $5,000 a night. Then when it comes to a festival, they're being offered like £3,000, they're confused. But it's like they haven't got the information, the metrics of actually gigging live and doing tours is important. So that part is always key, like the actual live music, being in front of your fans, and as you spoke before about merchandise, that also helps people to chart now as well. So these things are important.
I think the live side is certainly, it's how you grow, or one of the things, you can talk about, obviously PR and publicity, but you've got to hone your craft live, and you start, playing to 20 people in a room, and you build it up and you build it up, and you need to go through that process in order to grow as a band, and then obviously the financials coming down the line. I mean, ultimately, when you're starting up, if you can break even, happy days. I mean, that's how it works. It's the same with the promoter, though. I mean, I could, whether I'm doing a show for 300 people or 20,000 people, there's a break-even point that I'm desperate to get to. As time goes on and costs going up, it's like it could be 85% before you're even earning anything. So you've got to sell a lot of tickets, and that's where it gets complicated with certain artists and how much you pay for them and whatever. But ultimately, the sum of parts from a live point of view, whether that's 3 people on the bill or 30, you're trying to build audience. The festival or the event is trying to build audience. We all want to go from doing 300 to 30,000 eventually, right? If everyone works in tandem, then that's where the growth comes into it. But gigging is so important from that point of view, because that's how you grow your audience, that's how you hone your craft, and hopefully earn some money along the way, that even if it isn't your main income, even if it pays for your petrol and your van and all of that kind of stuff, we've all been there, but that's the numbers are still the same. You still got to try and get to a point where you earn enough money from the gig or from merch or whatever it is, or if it's an investment to grow, sometimes you have to do a gig for not much money at all, or any money.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a pint, right? But that's part of the process that you have to go through.
The thing we found over the last year is that more and more sort of microbreweries around London, in and around, are really interested in putting on events, and because our lead vocalist works at one of them, he's networked with all of them, and they pay really well. But it's a really funky, like, weird kind of place to play a gig, but it's really fun. So I just want to put that out there.
Just quickly to clarify something. So ticket sales for a live show, there's potential income there. Where else is there income for a live show?
For the artist, or?
Okay, start with the artist.
I mean, merch is the obvious one. I mean, it's, that's an opportunity,
Sorry, I was on his microphone.
I mean, from my side as a promoter, it's always a tricky one, because if you're venue side, then you want to protect your bar, you need your bar take, and certainly from an artist point of view, if you're talking about doing your own shows and going into venues, if you can bring an audience, you can bring a bar spend. So there's always a conversation to be had there. I try it from a promoter point of view, say, yeah, I'm going to bring you 10,000 people or 1,000 people or 100 people, and they all drink a lot of vodka. Well, yeah, then maybe you might get a cut of the bar profit. But audience is key for me. If you can bring audience, then you've got a negotiation.
And is it playing your own tracks?
Well,
See where he's going with this.
I feel like it's getting to me next. I'm like shaking.
Well, you're playing your own tracks, then there is an element where there is PRS do collect on that live performances as well.
Yeah, I play PRS on every show that I do.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, because basically you've written your own songs.
Yep.
And then as a songwriter, you're entitled to a royalty.
Correct, yeah.
Where you can get that royalty from PRS, yeah? So what about DJs? If the DJ's playing your own track, so forget the live show, but a DJ performance, is your PRS royalty for a DJ?
That I may have to throw back to you. Or that may be, because the DJ, in PRS we have like various roles, and we actually have one that pertains to DJs. But to me, it's like, it's a grey area for me, because sometimes the DJs are playing so many songs in a set, and to get their set list may not always be the easiest thing. But I know that there is, I forgot what's the tour that we have that actually tracks what's being played for the DJs. Do you remember the name of it, Stuart? No. You don't remember the name?
Like a sort of Shazam sort of thing, is it?
It's something that is like, we were talking about internally, it's like when DJs are going to festivals, is actually registering the songs that are being played. So if a DJ, I think hypothetically, and don't quote me on this, although it's been recorded, but hypothetically, if a DJ plays your song in a set, and it's been registered and sent off, you should still be able to get a form of like royalty from that. So yeah, so there's many ways, and And I think just even moving kind of like, and I'm not a promoter, but I've booked a couple of venues before, and some audiences have different drinking patterns. And you wouldn't know this. So you'll say, yeah, look, I'm bringing 1,000 people. They'll be like, yeah, but rap music, they're not drinking that much. And
Previous role, I've actually worked as a consultant for a brewery, and going into music venues and being able to look at the types of venues and how many barrels of beer you're going to sell across a year. I use an example of I worked on an event where the headliner was The Who. So, from a brewery point of view, they were desperate to be involved in that because they knew that the audience would turn up at 2 o'clock and they'd be there for 10:30 and they would drink because they had the money to be able to do so. Now, that compared to a, hip-hop show or, a Disney family show changes your perspective in terms of the value of that. It does make a difference in that way.
I think it's those things, those are like the little nuances that you wouldn't actually know sometimes. And I think if you're ever in a creative situation, just ask questions. Anything you don't know, just ask, because it's in effect acquired information, and it's best to get it out from the beginning, because I think everyone wants to do things and realize the potential, and you kind of like want to just have like the best route to where you want to be, as opposed to like being stuck at the same corner, like how do I get my song on radio? And then you don't realize that there's radio pluggers, there's playlist meetings, or the show is playlisted, so if you're not being plugged, you may not get on. So there's many things within the music, but yeah, I just think my own personal thing is like, as much as I listen to rap music a lot, I love like live bands because you can't fake it. You have to be good. Like you have to together work. In hip hop, it's sometimes like just the producer could just email the beat, you write, you do a video, and that's it. And some of the live performances that they haven't been like practicing as hard. So you just look at the thing where like I have a great appreciation for like live indie bands, because like just even to learn how to play an instrument, it's not easy. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely think those are the things. It's like the bedrock of this country and the music that's been coming out for years. So, yeah.
I've got a question. Just talking about microbreweries made me think of this. But what would you any of you think was the opportunity at the moment for, or at what stage in an artist's kind of development where could they align themselves with a brand that either produces a sort of financial return, or maybe there's another benefit which could be exposure. Where do you kind of see that at the moment? Any of you?
I've got an answer to that. I'm going to sound like I'm wearing so many hats, but I work in brand partnership as well. So the brand space is quite lucrative for an artist. Many brands, they're looking for like Gen Z, they're looking for like the youth, and looking for people who actually align to those values. Where at which point it makes sense to them, it could be at any point really. There's, for example, if you're a DJ, headphone companies, there's JBL, there's Beats. They could just start off by giving you product, align yourself with a brand, excuse me, align yourself with your brand that way, and just make it as seamless as possible. And the great thing with the brand partnerships is they don't take any, there's no IP, there's no, it's not like a record deal where they're owning your masters. Yeah. They just want to be affiliated and associated with you. There's consumer, like there's Puma, there's Reebok, there's JD Sports, there's Foot Asylum. Like anything that you're in effect wearing, brands are trying to get involved in like music and culture now. Like you see it all the time, but you may not actually be aware that there's actually every company is now creating their own cultural marketing person who's actually supposed to be looking for people like yourselves who are making music to translate to their audience. So it's just like if you see yourself actually as a billboard, what do I like to wear, what do I like to eat, your lifestyle, even gyms, they're doing, so it's literally everywhere. So it could be at any point, but obviously naturally when you're at a certain level, like if you are a Stormzy or Central C, they're throwing themselves at you. But it's just really like if you have like a core understanding, you said it before about knowing who you are, and a PR, like once you actually understand the narrative, even if the numbers aren't there, at least they understand what you represent, and they can say, okay, cool, that's a seamless fit. We can work with that person. So that's how I see it with the brand alignment.
What about in the live space, particularly? Like, I mean, things I've been to this year, certainly sort of outdoor events, seem more brand heavy than ever in terms of, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's partly financial as well. I mean, you know, from when you're putting on an event, you need to try and find extra forms of income yourself. So the ticket, you know, I mean, ultimately, if you look at a festival, it is in effect a big bar, because you know your ticket money is not going to cover the costs. You need to earn revenue right across the board, and you know, brand partnerships and sponsorship is part of that. I mean, sometimes it can be, you know, monetary, and sometimes it can be discount, you know, if it's an equipment or something like that, and sometimes it can be just about exposure. And actually, those same things are just as applicable if you're an artist. You know, sometimes it could be about getting some equipment and you're doing a brand partnership that way. It could be exposure because they've got a marketing budget that you don't have access to, and hopefully at some point there's a revenue stream there for you as well, right? Because you are considered valuable. So it is definitely something to develop and explore.
Do you get any sort of involved in any sort of brand partnership stuff with your artists?
With one of the artists I've worked with, we did some stuff with Vans. So
Right.
we did like a House of Vans show, and then did some interviews with them there, which they put across their social media. I didn't get any free Vans though, which was really annoying.
Aw.
Yeah. But I'm a DMs girl, so if anyone's working from DMs, like, let me know.
I've got Vans on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can I have them? No. So, and then we did some stuff with Levi's as well, and I did get some free Levi's stuff, which was pretty cool. But yeah, that's something. It's like what you were saying about like having that sort of like honing it down, just making it really easy for them, and being like, look, I wear your Vans or whatever all the time. I've got X amount of followers. I really do live and breathe this brand. Like with the band, it was really easy to get them that, because the music they played was perfect for a House of Vans show. They're always skating. They always look like they're just in Vans. I mean, they wear Converse most of the time, but they kind of look like that kind of Vans crowd. So we literally just emailed them. We were just like, can we come and do a show there? And can they have some Vans? And it was just like, yeah, cool. What are you doing on this date? And it was just so seamless. So, and that all, again, comes back to like honing that narrative down, like early on, knowing what you stand for, who you are, where your fan base is, where you're going to reach those people, and then everything else should just sort of fall into place. But I know that's easier said than done.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. I'm not. Ben, are we about? Is this finishing time now? Can I go now?
You've got 4 more minutes, but you know, let's have an early lunch.
If no one's got a burning question that we haven't covered, there's one here.
We've got one.
Good question. I was going to ask that and I forgot.
That's a good question. I don't think it's. Let me think about this, because I don't want to say something stupid. I don't think there's a right or a wrong time, but it's like going back to what I'm saying, is about knowing what, because like you don't want to basically just keep pitching to Vans every week and being like, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? But it's actually knowing for you when's the right time. I don't think there's like a blanket response that works for every band, every artist, every style of music. But I think it's just really, and doing your research as well. Like you can't just have that same email you send out to like every brand, just being like, hey, I want to represent you because I really love the brand. Like actually doing your research, knowing that it's the right one, because otherwise it'd be a waste of your time sending the email and a waste of their time, and you could end up sort of getting blacklisted if you're just reaching out all the time. But no, I wouldn't say there's a right or a wrong, but I would say it's important to have a good social media presence, because if you email and they are interested, the first thing they're going to do is be like, look you up on Instagram, and if you've got one follower and it's your mum, and you haven't posted anything that looks remotely similar to their brand, then it's going to be a straight away like veto, like no. So no, I wouldn't say there's a right or a wrong time, but just making sure that you've done your research and you've got all that stuff backdated, so you give them a reason to actually give a shit about you.
Cool. Right, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you very much for listening and getting involved. Thank you very much, the panel, for being very brilliant. Round of applause for these excellent humans. Thank you.